Ladies and gentlemen from around the world, my name is Dr. Stuffner and welcome back to the Brief Vapes channel. It is my absolute pleasure, finally, to be able to put out this review for you on the Uwell Crown 3. I have had this thing now for about a week and a half and I've been trying my best not to release the video too early, but I thought today was the day, really. I feel like I've had enough experience with it now. It's been pretty much my everyday carry, apart from when I was down in Liverpool for 2 days, and I feel like I've had enough experience with it now, and I've been able to really get into the details of this tank. Details, it's a sub-ohm tank, there's no real details to it. It's not a particularly layered tank, it's basically a vape and go. But that's by no means a bad thing, as Uwell has proved here, once again, in my opinion. This is Brief Vapes, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about... I'm not going to strip the tank down and show you all the intimate little threading and all that stuff, and I'm not even going to show you the box, actually. I was going to reach down and get the box then, but no. I'm not going to get the box. This is Brief Vapes, and I'm going to give you my opinion, and hopefully this, combined with, as you should do as a consumer, you should look at multiple sources. You should never go to one source for your reviews. I'm just providing my opinion in the way that I like to do it, and hopefully you get something out of it, you know? So we're going to go through, this is going to be the same style as my Cleto XO review. I'm going to go from the bottom of the tank to the top of the tank and tell you what I think of the little things briefly. So 510 connector. I'm not going to throw the focus out or anything. It's too shallow. I mean, I hate to be the one to keep saying it, but you shouldn't be using stock sub-ohm coil tanks with hybrid devices anyway. It's just not something you should do. But if you are one of those people who's at all interested in perhaps trying it or just genuinely curious about it, I'd say it's probably just about safe enough, protruding enough for it. There's a bit of insulation, but it doesn't protrude past the 510 threading. Don't do it. Simple as that. But if you're curious, there's the facts. Well, not facts. There's my opinion. The airflow control. This is a 3-slot airflow control, so that's a new thing for Uwell. Very new thing, actually. I believe since the first generation Crown, so we're talking Crown 1, Crown 2, Raphael, Crown 2, and all the Ds. Is that what they were called? I never tried those tanks, actually. And the Crown Mini, they have those, it's the 2-slot design, opposite sides of the for the airflow. This has 3, and in my opinion, it's a bit too airy. It's a bit too airy, but obviously it's adjustable. It's not a clicky adjustment like it was in the Crown 2. This is a free-flowing one, but it has stoppers at each end, so you don't go too far. Simple, really simple airflow, and it's so smooth. It's such a smooth airflow. It's perfect. It's really, really spot on for me. And obviously you can. I've generally been running this about half open on each slot because you can't adjust each slot independently, so it's half for each slot, and even then it's really smooth. A little bit turbulent, but still fine. It's so smooth and silky. The chamber here in the middle, it's a standard thing from Uwell now. They basically cage their coils in this sort of metal thing, and that's basically what they've done here. Except the slots for the juice flow are a lot wider, and a lot deeper, it seems. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And they also have a fill line on here now, a min fill line, which is too high in my opinion. It's about a fifth. It's about a fifth of the tank high from the bottom, and it's a bit too high. But I think they're a bit paranoid about people burning out the tanks and getting a single negative review about coils burning out too early. So they're making sure that the tank is always filled with enough juice for the coil itself to handle. Up to the top, the top cap is just, it looks like the Crown 2 one, if I'm being totally honest. It doesn't have any particularly grippy knurling on it, which is perhaps a con, but not for me personally. I will say, however, that the threading on this is a little bit janky, all over the place. It's not, you're not going to cross thread it or anything, but it's a very shallow threading. But it's a bit, I don't know, it's not silky like the Crown 2 was. I felt they really put effort into that threading and how smooth it was, but this one feels a little bit janky on the few occasions I've taken this tank apart. And the 510 drip tip is a 510 drip tip. It has this weird sort of conical shape to it, inside and out, that I can't really describe to you on camera or show you. You have to sort of get really deep into it and look at it yourself to sort of see. But it's a 510 drip tip, and it's serviceable. You know, it does the job perfectly fine. Let's screw this onto the Minikin V2, ramp it up to 90 watts. This is the 0.25 coil I've got in here. I've been testing this for a week, and it hasn't dried out. It hasn't even given me a single dry hit, which I'm immeasurably proud of Uwell for. I'm so proud of them for finally finding a coil design that actually works. I think a lot of people in general had problems even with the original Crown's coils, that they burnt out too fast or just weren't quite punchy enough for them. But I'm going to say something now that I think this is probably the best sub-ohm tank I've ever used for flavour. Better than the Crown 2, which I actually really liked. When you got a coil, when you were lucky enough to dip your hand into the sea of Uwell Crown 2 coils that there were and get one that actually worked, I thought that tank was the best sub-ohm tank for flavour. Was after this thing. This thing now has completely nailed it for me. I actually had the airflow fully open then, and it was still just as good, and I didn't even realise. A thing with a lot of sub-ohm tanks, and I think I may have pointed it out with the Cleto Exos one. Either way, it's a problem that a lot of the sub-ohm stock coils have. That taste of cotton never quite leaves the coil. And I found, specifically with the Crown 2s and this one, you're only ever getting the taste of your juice. There's no weird interference, no weird rubbery, metally interference that you often got with the Cleto tanks, with the Cleto coils, for instance. But there's no cotton taste. It's just a rich, punchy flavour from your juice. I'm testing this with the glass apple that I make. That's pretty much all I've used in it for a week and a half now, just because I wanted to make sure that it was a stable vape and didn't, perhaps I should have thrown a couple more juices in there just to see if it would burn the coil out. Often when you change juices over to perhaps to a denser juice or a thinner juice, it can take the life of the coil down slightly, but I wanted to make sure it was a consistent vape at the very least. And I can tell you now that it is. It's a fantastic vape, and as you can see there, it doesn't lack in the cloud department. As I said, this is the 0.25. And generally, I think the tank is fantastic. I think the way it's designed is very, very good. I think I should get onto the pros, in which there are. Let's start with the threading that I've already mentioned. The threading issue is it's a minor issue, and I don't think they're going to cross-thread or anything anytime soon, at the very least. I think it's fine for now, and I think it's at the very, very least serviceable. I don't like the fact this is definitely a con. I don't think this is a subjective con either. I'd like to have seen them, because this is most likely, well, definitely is going to be the last big tank Uwell releases, the last big 5ml capacity tank that Uwell releases. I'd like to have seen them throw in an RBA deck, just as a token gesture, just to say, yep, there's the RBA deck, you won't have to pay for one of these in the future, this is the last big tank we're going to do, here's an RBA deck, just in case you want to mess around. And there isn't one, which is a massive shame, and I think that's just a big shame. Other cons. Are there any other cons? The 510 again is subjective. Don't use it on a hybrid anyway. I've already said that. Any other cons? No, there's no other cons. Let's get on to the pros, which is the most important part. Where to start with the pros? Flavour. I've already mentioned the flavour is fantastic. Best flavour I've ever had from a sub-ohm tank by far. By far. Just fantastic, clear, clean, and just a great vape. Vapour production is on point. Let's move on to the fact that Uwell didn't go mental with this tank. It's the trend these days within the industry to make these huge cloud-chasing sub-ohm tanks. Smock, I'm looking at you. That's pretty much all you release now. That have ditched all attempts at bringing us better flavour, and have just gone for traded all of that off in favour of vapour production. And I suppose there's nothing particularly wrong with that. I mean, vaping is subjective, and a lot of people like that side of vaping, that big cloud-chasing side of vaping. But I feel like the flavour tanks have been sort of left in the mud, especially when it comes to sub-ohm tanks. And Uwell haven't gone mental. They released 2 coils for this so far, at least. You've got a 0.25, which is rated at best at 80 to 90 watts, and the 0.5 coil, which is rated best at 70 to 80 watts. And they haven't gone mental with it. And I believe predominantly they had flavour chasers in mind when they made this tank. And I'm so happy that they did stick with their roots, because a lot of people got into the Crown one, and I believe the reason that it did so well in the first place was because it provided great flavour for a sub-ohm tank, and I believe they followed the trend. And I think they tried to do it with the Crown 2 as well, but, failed. Let's not talk about that anymore. This is about the Crown 3. Juice consumption is another pro. Sorry, this thing is great. It's not so thirsty, and you wouldn't expect it to be, because the cores, you're not using huge wattages on this like you are with the TFV8, the TFV12, or something like the Milo 300. Yeah, it's just great. I mean, what I did was whenever I get a new tank, I like to test how well the juice capacity does practically, not just visually, but literally. I like to measure as best I can the amount of puffs it takes using, obviously, a mod. I reset the puff counter the first time I got this, I used the 0.5 coil in here first, 102 pulls to empty the tank, which is one of the best I've ever had, one of the best records I've ever had in terms of how many puffs to empty the tank. 0.25 coil was 86, which is an expected result, really. It's a lower ohm coil, and it's drying the cutting out faster within the coil, so you'd expect it to drink more juice. That's just par for the course, really. But generally, this is going to last you. If you're not necessarily if you're a long haul driver or anything like that, but certainly if you're out for a couple of hours and you're fairly lenient with the way you vape, this tank's going to do it for you. It really is going to do it for you. And even then, you don't have to take more than a 30ml or even a 10ml bottle of juice out with you in a coat pocket or something. So that's fine. Another pro, General Design. They found a formula they like and they're sticking with it. And I cannot commend them more for that. I think it's a very pretty tank. I think they could have added a few more things. Like I said, there could have been some knurling atop the top cap. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. And I think it looks pretty enough as it is. It's not particularly eye-catching, but yeah, I mean, I've never been a big fan of flashy tanks in the first place, and not to say that this is plain looking, but it does the job and it looks sexy. That's, yeah. Anyway, I think I'm going to shut up now, because this has been almost 12 minutes long, which is way too long. So I'm going to have a vape, guys, and tell you that you should, if you're at all interested in getting a big sub-ohm tank before the TPD compliant regulations kick in this country or around the EU, go and get this one. Really, go and get this one now, if you can. A lot of places are selling out very, very fast, and they're getting last orders in now, just in case, because they don't want to get too many in, just in case they can't sell them after the regulations kick in on the 19th or the 20th. Anyway, that's my opinion. It's just my opinion. Thank you very much for watching. I'll leave you with a vape. So good. So good.